Now, as we all know, the Cincinnati Bengals have been on a roll lately. After making it to the Super Bowl and putting up an incredible fight, they seem to have a good plan on how to make a good playoff push. Now, before the Bengals looked like the best team in football, they were looked at as the worst team in football. Now, that was back in 2019 when they were tanking for a top 3 pick in the draft. But even before that, the Bengals still weren't great. Their fans were having a blast in 2015 when the Bengals went off with a 12-4 record. But afterwards, it would feel like a never-ending spiral of missing the playoffs with an average record. So what exactly did the Bengals go through, and what changes did they make to become one of the greatest forces in the league today? How is everybody doing today? It's Portolo back with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and what they had to go through to become such a good NFL team. Let's not waste any time, and let's get straight into it. I think the best place we can start off is in the 2015 offseason. The Cincinnati Bengals had an incredible season as they won 12-4 and were tied for having the best record in the AFC with the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. Taking a closer look at that team, they had one of the better quarterbacks in the league at that time, Andy Dalton. That season in 2015, Dalton threw for 3,250 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He was on fire and was the centerpiece of their offense. The Bengals also had a younger Adrien Green, a beastly Tyler Eifert, and a strong left tackle by the name of Andrew Whitworth. Now that was the offense. Seemed like a top 10 offense in the league, right? Well, just take a look at their defense. They had incredible guys like Carlos Dunlap, who had 13.5 sacks that season, Geno Atkins, who had 11 sacks, Adam Jones, who caught 3 interceptions, and Reggie Nelson, who caught 8 interceptions and recovered a fumble 2 times. Their defense was unstoppable, which explained why the Bengals played so well. But how do you go from a team with a 12-4 record and an all-around good team to a team that missed the playoffs and struggling to even have a winning percentage at .500? Well, let's just say the 2016 Cincinnati Bengals had some issues. For starters, Adrien Green was on track to having the same or even better year than his previous season, but he suffered a hamstring injury in Week 11, which didn't allow him to finish the season with his projected stats. Now, Andy Dalton was far from the problem for the Bengals, and if anything, he played even better as he threw for over 4,000 yards. The only issue was the fact that he got sacked 41 times, which brings up the fact that the Bengals' offensive line could have very well been the problem. Andrew Whitworth was still playing well, being a Pro Bowler in 2016, but it was the rest of the offensive line that could be better. Now, as for the tight end Tyler Eifert, he also dealt with some injuries during the season, which caused him to only start in 2 games. And how about the defense? Was it still as deadly? Well, no. Carlos Dunlap still played well, but had less sacks. Same thing for Geno Atkins. Adam Jones would also have a decrease in his stats, which caused for him to not be a Pro Bowler that season. Moving on to the 2017 season, which was slightly better than 2016. Andy Dalton remained consistent, throwing over 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. Adrien Green remained healthy and played very well. The Bengals' problem was still the offensive line. The Bengals decided not to make any moves with the O-line during the offseason, and that would come back to haunt them pretty good. As for the Bengals' defense, it was ranked 16th in the league with 349 points allowed. If the Bengals could have improved the offensive line by re-signing Andrew Whitworth and Kevin Zeitler, then improved their defense just a bit more, they would have been in a much better position. But things were only getting worse from here on out. In 2018, the Bengals won 6-10 during the regular season and were last in their division. Andy Dalton's consistency was starting to wear off as he started suffering injuries, and Adrien Green was back to getting injured as well. As for the Bengals' offensive line, it remained to be one of the worst in football. During the offseason, the Bengals picked up 2 guys for their O-line, Cordy Glenn and Billy Price. Both guys seemed like they would be helpful for the Bengals, but instead, they were quite the opposite. Speaking of a part of your team being the worst in football, Cincinnati's defense was atrocious. They were ranked 30th in the league and gave up 445 points and 1,084 yards per offensive play. Now, before going to 2019, let's talk for a quick minute about the Bengals situation. So the Bengals clearly couldn't get anywhere with their current team. They have some pretty big problems that weren't causing them to win many games. So what was going to be Mike Brown's plan? Well, simple. tanking. The upcoming draft class for the NFL after the 2019 season would include one of the best quarterbacks coming out of college football, Joe Burrow. So the Bengals' plan was to let this season die off by losing some games and then get their future star quarterback. And that plan worked to perfection. The Bengals won 2-14 during the regular season and were at one point on an 11-game losing streak. That season was a hard one to watch for Bengals fans. But the offseason, well, it speaks for itself.
The Bengals have turned in their selection. Let us go to the commissioner.
Okay, here we go. With the first pick in the 2020 draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU.
The Bengals' goal of getting Joe Burrow actually happened, and the fans were hyped to see their new quarterback. And as well they should be. They got their hands on one of the best quarterbacks coming out of college. Now, it was supposed to be a fun year for Bengals fans. Until week 11.
And there was the sack. We just established it, and there they do it. The streak is alive. Bad news for Cincinnati fans. Oh, Joe Burrow was bent sideways. It looked like his left leg, oh no, the #1 pick in the draft looks to be seriously hurt.
Joe Burrow would tear his ACL, and that caused for him to miss the rest of the season. This was obviously painful to watch for Bengals fans, but maybe, looking back at it, this injury was for the better. Let me explain. Even though the Bengals weren't playing well, since Burrow was out, the Bengals would continue being worse, so they went 4-11. But during the offseason, they got a high draft pick due to their poor record, and they used that high draft pick to get Burrow's teammate in college, Jamar Chase. Coming into the 2021 season, their offensive line improved and was no longer the worst in football. Their defense still wasn't the greatest according to StatMuse, as it was ranked 26th in the league, but looking at that Bengals team, they went from a mediocre team with not a lot of help, both offensively and defensively, to this young talented team with an electric offense. Joe Burrow would come back looking better than ever, as he was one of the better quarterbacks in the previous season. And now looking at it, we will see where the Bengals will go from here and if they will get better or worse. And that is going to be it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Before I get to the very end of the video, I'd just like to point out something real quick. I know it has been 3 weeks since I uploaded my last video, and I just wanted to apologize to you guys. The real reason why was because I had finals, and there was really no other way I could have made any videos. I tried my best, but I genuinely couldn't do anything. But now, guys, I'm on summer break, which means I have a bunch of time to put some good hours into making some YouTube videos, so you better believe I'm going to be focusing a lot more on YouTube this summer. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're on the grind to 2,000 subscribers, and as always, I will see you all in the next video. I'm out.